you ever heard of the term marginal debt, margin debt? If you haven't, you need to stay around. Some of you hear these terms that we use here on the wealth transfer. By the way, my name is Charles Vance. I'm along with Chief Strategist Terry Sacka. You are watching the Wealth Transfer. Some of you hear these terms on the news and they run past them so quickly that you're not real sure what they even talked about. You kind of dismiss it and catch the next segment of the news. Margin debt's important, isn't it, Terry?
Well, margin debt is important because, welcome everyone, margin debt is important because it has allowed bankers and traders and investors to invest money that they don't really have. So if I put $50,000 into a trading account, they'll give me $150,000 to trade with. It's like a credit line, like a big credit card. Problem is, when you have high levels of margin debt, it leads to a panic sell-off when the markets collapse.
Is that something similar to what went on with the housing collapse?
Exactly right.
Because people were borrowing money that they didn't really have it.
Yes.
And they invested it in stuff that just kept going up and up and up.
Yeah, it was margin debt. Now we're going to show that image again.
Is that the same thing as fractional banking?
Yes.
Okay. So
I'm a bank. I bring in $1 million in deposits, and they say I can lend out $25 million in loans. On paper, fake digits created in the cosmos, not backed up by anything real.
So you don't need the cash there. They let you do it digitally in your assets and debit lines in your digital checkbook banking.
Right. But where the fear comes in for the bankers, and it always has been through history, mind you, but they were learning how to manipulate people's psychology. Where the fear comes in, if every one of you get up right now and tomorrow and go to the bank and we try to withdraw your money, it's not there. And you won't get it.
Because it's checkbook money. It's just digital
They don't
money.
have it. They may have, if you have $300,000 in that bank, it's not there. And you think you have FDIC insurance, that's a whole nother topic. Go to the banking segment in the wealth transfer link on the Cornerstone page. Watch that series because your money's not there. Now, the reason I'm saying that, the bankers fear, the only fear that they have is if everyone wanted their money at the same time, the whole thing collapses. The only way they get away with it is because you lend them the money.
You're talking about actually walking in and saying, I want my cash.
I want to take my cash
I want cash
home.
back out.
That's right, yeah. And they don't want you to take your cash back home. You know what they want you to use? Your card. When you use a credit card or a debit card, you're using it against your cash, but it's all digital. So they're not able to they don't have to actually have the cash on hand because it's all digital, moving digital. Now, this is really dangerous because when Europe, Japan, the global economy starts collapsing, those banks will not have your money. I say that no, it will not be there. You either have to say, I'm going to take a risk that it will be, or I don't know enough, I'm just going to bury my head in the sand and not think about it. But no, diversification is key.
Let me ask you this question because people probably are so digital-minded now, computer-minded.
That's right.
You know, you can take a picture.
And I think that's by design, too.
I think it's amazing that you can take a picture of a check with your smartphone and make a deposit, a digital deposit, and then you've got a check that's basically of no value because you just transferred what was on the check into your banking account. Are people even concerned about a currency anymore?
They're trying to make us not think currency is as important. They're trying to make you think that just use a credit card or a debit card. They're trying to make...
When you do that, you're using, I mean, with a debit card, you're obviously using your money that's in your checking account. Right. But if you're using a credit card, you're using somebody else's money.
That's right. They want
us... It's borrowed.
Yes, and they want us to think eventually we don't need this. Just like they got us to think we don't need this. But all through history, it always implodes. This will not sustain. We will have a major element. Why? When everybody wakes up out of the ether and sees the reality of the deception, and they go, oh my gosh, we've been lied to. It's like we've been asleep for 30 years. And they go, I want my back. They realize even this isn't worth what they think it's worth. and they will wish, I want this back like I had in the 70s. And I just tell people, I'm in the refining and mining aspect of the industry, and I just tell people, be cautious, because this is a limited supply. And if you think it's always going to be there, you might be kidding. One, two, you're going to pay a lot more premium to buy it. So
so the margin debt could be something that would be very important for us to pay attention to. Are there,
Yes.
are there charts?
Well, let's do that, because the margin debt is so important for us to pay attention to, because when we get too high in the margin debt, that's when the economies collapse.
Now, are we talking about, generally speaking, when we talk about a chart for margin debt, are we talking about like generally for the population of the United States? Is that the way we look at it?
Yeah, look at it from the population of the United States to what's in the trading, in the stock market, in the bond market. This margin debt, now the reason it's bad, when you borrow a lot of money to invest is what they do in margin debt. When the economy collapses or a stock market crashes, the margin debt has to get covered. So remember, I borrow money to...
Well, who covers that? Because
you better sell something to cover it, right?
Yeah,
Something
what if
tangible.
You don't? What happens?
You're bankrupt.
As an individual, you're bankrupt.
As a bank, you're bankrupt.
Well,
as a stockbroker
somebody
firm,
can't
you're
pay
bankrupt.
you back.
Their brokerage firms bankrupt. Remember Lehman Brothers? Bankrupt. Remember these banks that went out of business? Bankrupt.
But the whole point is if you've got margin debt and you're in the stock market and the stock market collapses and you've got $50,000 or $150,000 invested, but you only had 50, you're obviously going to lose your 50.
You're going to lose the entire 50, and if you don't watch it, you may owe more.
But somebody else has got 100 that they're losing. And the investment company or the stock or the bank that loans you the money is losing that money.
Yeah.
So this becomes, I mean, we talked a couple weeks ago about a domino effect. This becomes a domino effect.
Now,
is that right?
And here's the domino effect. Play that image we did last week if we could, 63, the margin debt. Kind of going backwards. I want you to see this. This image is in what Charles just said, right there. The average debt we used to have in America since 1958 was the bottom black line. That was okay, that was reasonable, we were surviving. Danger levels of margin debt are that top black line. You've noticed we breached those areas 3 times where we borrowed way more than we should have in the last 85 years. The first black circle was the big market crash, 9/11, 2000, Shemitah 1, I'll say, when our financial towers collapsed. The second middle circle, 2008 stock market collapse. The largest percentage stock market collapse in the history of the United States. Well, I don't know about you, but it makes me a little nervous knowing that that circle on the right is higher infinitely than 2008, which was the largest market crash in the history of America. We're on the verge of a major correction. When they try to cover that margin, you can take it off. When they try to cover that margin debt, these markets will be in a panic to sell, to raise money, to pay the loan that they took out to go into the stock market. And do you want to get caught in that tornado? But this is why this is important.
Doesn't that then, if you've got an IRA or a 401k or whatever your retirement, most of them's invested somehow in the stock market.
Thank you,
So
Charles.
the stock market begins to spiral down, and that's the way in 2008, that's the reason that people lost so much money in their retirement plan.
And how many people lost money since 2008? I have a lot of people say, well, I'm about break even, or I'm up this much, and I'm like, well.
But that's not true if you look at inflation.
That's right.
Because inflation has eaten up way more than what if you're even.
That's right.
Again.
There's no doubt.
And the inflation keeps coming because the government keeps needing money for their bond to operate the government, so they're selling bonds to the people like the Federal Reserve, which gives them, they print more money. It's just throwing more money into the system.
If we're needing $1 trillion a year more than what we bring in, so a real business or a real household, really for a real household, let's do it this way. If you make $5,000 a month and your bills are $4,500, then you can save $500 a month, right? Well, the government makes $5,000 a month, but they spend like $25,000. So obviously, if we as a household did that, eventually what would happen? We'd be bankrupt and implode.
I asked a guy that had a business, a small business. He had gone out of business, and we were talking one day about business. I said, how long can you keep losing money and stay in business. He said, 3 years for me. So he just kept going to the bank, borrowing more money, borrowing more money, thinking that something was going to change, but yet he was doing nothing different to make it change.
That's right.
The government is actually doing things worse as far as managing money. They're not doing anything different to balance a budget or to get their debt paid down. And there's reason for that. I mean, you can go into all kinds of
there's politics involved in that, but
economic reasons.
And we've actually had, which is astonishing if people knew, we have more tax revenue coming to the government now than in history.
I'm sure of it.
But we're spending more.
Yeah.
Still. And so it's like a drug. They get more money, they spend more. And they never stop. So why is this important? Is because when this next correction comes, which I think is coming soon, are we going to be able to recover this time? I think this next one is so huge compared to 2008 that I don't know about what is even possible. What can you do about it? How can you protect all your life savings? Here's some ways you can.
Cornerstone Asset Metals is here to help you protect and preserve what you have worked hard to gain. For those who have IRAs to protect, 401ks to preserve, or cash in the bank, we would like to send you a package of information regarding the changes to the dollar and the challenges of our economy that you need to be prepared for. This package includes how easy it is to roll over your current IRA or 401k into a physical precious metals IRA for long-term protection of your hard-earned wealth. For those of you with cash to invest, we can arrange to have your precious metals stored in a private vault or simply send it to your home. Call or register now.
Now, the reason we're trying to illustrate this is I call it a house of cards. This whole thing is a smoke and mirror. Since 2008, we've been printing trillions of fake dollars to prop the economy up, but it's all fake. And without getting into the definitions of what this means, just know that the image I'm going to show you illustrates Wall Street, money printing, fake investment, how the whole banking system works. But look at the inversion of it. It's this image number 64. It's an inverted pyramid, mind you. Okay, normally things rise to the top. This is inverted. Anything inverted means what? A collapse. At the top, derivatives, unfunded government liabilities like Social Security, non-monetary commodities, real estate, corporate muni bonds. If you notice, it all goes down. What's at the bottom? Gold. Just like any other pyramid, that at the top always is the place you want to be. Inverted, the bottom is where you want to be. You could take that off. Because that pyramid, because it's inverted, is going to collapse. From the top down, it's going to collapse. And the weight of that is going to be extraordinary. And Japan, Europe, all of this is going to collapse simultaneously. And that weight is going to end up, whoever's holding the gold wins. And it could go back to that golden rule, right? I guess.
Yeah, whoever has the gold rules.
Whoever has the gold rules.
I've had people ask me this before, and you've said this for ever since we've been on television with this program. What, 2.5 years?
Yeah, I've been on for a long time. Yes.
You've said, buy something. If you go to a pawn shop next door or down the street, buy something that's tangible and invest in a little bit. We've got a guy that goes to church. He's young. He's 20 years old. Working his first or second, maybe second job that he's working. He said, I'm buying 3 or 4 silver coins every week or so.
Yeah.
He said, I'm just putting them, I've got a safe, putting them in my safe. He said, you know, I'm buying stuff that I don't have to have the money, that little bit of money that I'm spending on it, $50, $100. He's single. Yeah. He said, I'm just going to keep investing. I'm going to keep buying a little bit at a time.
And you know, it's not even about Cornerstone. I mean, you don't have to come to Cornerstone for this.
You've said that.
I mean?
You've said that ever since we've done this.
Go anywhere. Go to a pawn shop and get silver dollars. Just go somewhere. We're here to help protect and preserve people's assets because a lot of folks are holding on to large sums of their entire net worth in IRAs, 401ks, or currency in the bank. And I have a concern for the body of Christ that we're going to miss what's coming. We won't be there to help feed the poor, let alone ourselves, if we're not prepared. And that's a big deal for me.
It should be a big deal for everybody, but I think a lot of people are deceived by thinking that their stuff is safe. somehow. But their IRAs and 401ks are invested in the stock market in general.
You know, thank you for keep bringing that up. That's the whole point here. When that margin debt collapses, your portfolio's going with it.
Well, it's done it historically. And
9/11, 2000, and 2008, mind you, and they're Shemitah years.
Sometimes we think that as long as everything's going okay,
I know,
that we're fine. I've told you this before. I didn't think I haven't told the TV audience, but I'm a pastor of a church for 21 years. But prior to that, I built upscale homes, and I still own a general contractor's license or hold one, and I have some investment properties and some different things. Had a guy approached me a few years ago, and he said, we want you to find some property. We need about 1,000 acres that we're going to develop, and it was a huge profit for us and me and a couple other guys involved in getting the property secured and what have you. We were within just a day or so of signing papers, and the guy that was the developer came to us and said, we're not going to do the deal. Of course, it was a letdown for us because we were going to make a bunch of money on the deal. And he said the economy is going to collapse. He said the housing market is going to just fall apart. Now, I had some investment in some properties that I wish I'd have had the insight that he had. He didn't invest in that. And I told the guy that we were dealing with, my partner, I said, this guy's crazy. I said, the housing market is going crazy.
And you know how many
right
people
now.
think silver and gold's crazy?
Well, see,
yeah.
Well, no, what I was saying on the other end, housing just kept going up and up and up. Property was going up. And I said, this guy's a nut that he's not investing in this.
A billionaire nut.
But he was a billionaire.
Right.
And he knew something that we didn't know. He had enough insight to know this stuff can only go so far,
yes.
and then it falls because
yes.
it's got fake value that has been infiltrated into it.
Yes.
And that's what's happening with the stock market right now.
That's right.
It's what's happening with our currency, the U.S. currency right now. And as long as things are going well, people just sit and think, well, shoot, it just keeps going. You know, I'm not having to do anything. It keeps going up. But there comes a reckoning day with this.
A reckoning day.
And if you're not invested in something tangible, thank God our real estate has recovered. Some that went down during that time period. Other was in a market that it didn't even affect it because it was a tangible asset that it wasn't in an inflationary community.
And that's something right now to be cautious of because real estate, although it's hard tangible, I'm with you. This next one coming, if you go all in real estate, remember it's not as liquid, meaning you can't buy and sell it as easy. Because I know Charles will contest to that. You get stuck with properties where this is as liquid as the water coming out of your faucet.
As liquid as you can get.
You can buy and sell it anytime, anywhere, and that's a big difference.
You can probably buy gasoline with this. If you go into definitely a mom and pop store in a minute, you can buy gas with it.
In the Midwest, there are people doing that. Yeah. And that's a very good point. I know what you're getting at now with that is, you know, it was the insight of this billionaire to avoid the trouble. And what we're trying to encourage people is to have that same insight here.
But my point was everybody else was just sitting and saying, well, it's going great.
I know.
So we didn't want to even look at the possibility of something being overinflated, that a price was inflated too high.
That's a normalcy bias. Intelligent people in denial that it will happen. If that's really true and nothing is coming, if that's true and everything is okay, then why this next image here, let's go into 65. Why that? If that's the case. On the right there are those blue lines. Those blue lines going down below that number, those are countries asking for their gold back that was stored in the New York Fed. They don't trust the U.S. government anymore. They want their gold back. Germany wants it back. Look at the Netherlands asked for it back. Big numbers. Now you can take that off. What I want to illustrate with that, they're asking for their gold back. Just a few weeks ago, Belgium asked for their gold back. These countries are repatriating their gold.
You mean they actually don't trust the Federal Reserve banking system?
They want their gold at home.
I'm being facetious.
I know. And Russia, China, I mean, they are importing gold like you can't believe. The gold is leaving the West, buying off the East. We are taking a stand, a line in the sand in the West that gold doesn't mean anything anymore. We're putting all of our stock into this currency in our military. I'm just saying that reckoning isn't going to happen. All through history, they go to zero. And I have a feeling before this collapses, It's going to get really ugly, and I am not going to discount the possibility we see major third world war. Is it going to be a financial war, which we're already in, mind you, currency wars, or is it something greater? I know the reckoning has to come. The data is so strong, just like Charles' story illustrated with this billionaire. He knew, he saw it. He goes, not touching it with a 10-foot pole, it's going to collapse. And I'm not sure if he mentioned it, it was 2 weeks later, it did collapse. And this guy was able to be saved out of that deal. And so this is something that I don't know the exact, but I know come September, I'll bet we start seeing the signs on that Shemitah. I just know the reckoning is so close. Are you willing to take a chance with your future, your hard-earned savings, your inheritance? Are you willing not to be diversified? All I'm saying for those that don't do it, are you going to be okay if what I'm saying turns out to be true and you didn't prepare? At least be okay that, well, I knew and I'm just going to have to deal with the consequences. I'm really saying be diversified. What can you do? How do you get started? Here's some ways you can.
Cornerstone Asset Metals is here to help you protect and preserve what you have worked hard to gain. For those who have IRAs to protect, 401ks to preserve, or cash in the bank, we would like to send you a package of information regarding the changes to the dollar and the challenges of our economy that you need to be prepared for. This package includes how easy it is to roll over your current IRA or 401k into a physical precious metals IRA for long-term protection of your hard-earned wealth. For those of you with cash to invest, we can arrange to have your precious metals stored in a private vault or simply send it to your home. Call or register now.
Now, I know this can come across as kind of scary or even Armageddon-y, but please, mind you, don't go there with that. We're not trying to do that. God did not give us a spirit of fear. We're not trying to be scary with it. This isn't Armageddon to us. This is an opportunity, as Charles always talks about. Wealth is either going to go away from you or come to you in these opportunities. And I'm just contending that with what data exists showing everything that the standard media is telling you is so fabricated and deceiving, it's not truthful. I'm saying be prepared as the body of Christ so we can be there not just for ourselves and families, but for others. Because this is about opportunity for the kingdom of God to rise up, about a revival of a wealth transfer. I mean, look at the image 66. You really think America's doing all that good? This is called the death cross of the American society. As they've been printing money, Wall Street and bankers have been getting rich. But look at small businesses. They're just collapsing. They're going out of business all over the country. So that right there is America, ladies and gentlemen, in business, entrepreneurial, mom and pop stores. That's what's going on. The bankers are getting rich while we are getting put out of business. I don't know about you. It doesn't sit well with me. You could take that off. We need to understand this from a perspective of what's real. That's the real small business index showing you what's going on, who's getting rich. Look at this next image here, 67. This is the real unemployment rate. You notice that's 12%.
Now, hold on just a minute, because the news is telling us that unemployment is at an all-time low, aren't they?
Right.
Did I hear that right the other day on the news?
Absolutely. Now, and remember, look at in the market crash how we see it at 18%, and then it's come down to 12%. You could take that off.
Well, 12% is still outrageous, isn't it?
12% is Great Depression type of number,
I mean, that's
absolutely.
12 out of 100 people not working.
It's 12% is huge. But yet the media tells you it's 5%. I'm not getting into the details because we don't have a lot of time with it. They're lying because they're excluding people and categories, and it's all fake. They just had a Gallup poll of CEOs around the country who have come out and said that the unemployment number is a complete lie. We know for a fact that in the last 5 years, most jobs created have been part-time. Most jobs lost in the Great Recession, they call it, have never recovered. This is the real data. So if it's all okay, why does the data say otherwise? Should we not be prepared? So let's go, and here's the most important one for me. If the global economy is definitely getting better, the United States is getting better, this next image is so serious because it's the only time in the history of its index to show this at this level. Look at this one, number 68. It's called the Baltic Dry Index. Look at that red line. What does that tell you? When that index is that low, it is screaming fire sirens and fire. Because that index being that low tells you the goods are not shipping around the world. That index shows you shipping containers from the east to the west.
So stuff coming out of the United States to other countries.
No,
Is that
other
what
countries shipping here. Either way, anybody shipping anything.
Just anything shipping.
Anybody shipping. That Baltic Dry shows you who is shipping what. And that low rate has been, to be that low, look at how many years and decades it's never been that low.
So this is just showing that
You can take that off.
global trade is down.
That's
tremendously.
showing you global trade
which would
is
mean
down.
Purchase of products and consumption of products would
Yes,
be down. Is that
and this
correct?
is so important because if everything is okay as they're telling us, why is the indicators of goods shipping around the world at the lowest we've ever seen in decades? Why is the unemployment rate so high? You see, deception isn't, they're not giving honesty here. So let's leave off, we'll leave off with this one more image here for this program. Look at this one here at 69. This is the S&P estimated index, earnings per share versus the nominal GDP. What that really means is the stock market of all the small companies in the S&P versus our real gross domestic product, what we're producing. Those red circles are the danger zones. They've always indicated great major recessions if you notice the timelines on it. The right side there with the question mark, that's where we're at right now. Right now, we're almost lower now than at any time in the history, going back even into, well, goes way back, so to decades, about 90s and 80s. We are worse now. That circle on the right, that is an indicator screaming collapse is coming. Are you prepared? You can take that off. Merely saying, watch out for what media and its sources you're getting. This data is the truth for you to decide. I hope Jesus is center of your life. He loves you. God bless you.
We're going to be back next week. You can watch these programs on demand at cornerstoneassetmetals.com. Tell somebody about the program. We'll see you right here next week, same place, same time, for more of the Wealth Transfer.
Cornerstone Asset Metals is here to help you protect and preserve what you have worked hard to gain. For those who have IRAs to protect, 401ks to preserve, or cash in the bank, we would like to send you a package of information regarding the changes to the dollar and the challenges of our economy that you need to be prepared for. This package includes how easy it is to roll over your current IRA or 401k into a physical precious metals IRA for long-term protection of your hard-earned wealth. For those of you with cash to invest, we can arrange to have your precious metals stored in a private vault or simply send it to your home. Call or register now.